Yes, I certainly do. Um, and I'll break them out into state issues and federal issues. But Ohio is the only state I know of that taxes revenues, even though there's no profits. And there couldn't be a greater impediment to the formation of new jobs, particularly startup related jobs that you could possibly conceive of. I'm not sure what people were doing or smoking in the tax committee that determined they should impose a cat tax, but I would say that would be number one. Number two, we have a shortage of jobs, largely because we don't have people skilled in various areas. Our school systems have decided that any type of trade school is somehow some sort of an insult to everybody, and I think we need, and I think we're doing it, but it can never happen fast enough. We need to train people for life, not just send them through a course that teaches them nothing about getting a job. We don't train people for the job force, and we need to do that. In the federal level, I don't think we should pay people not to work, and that's certainly a problem that's going on now. But also, there's a lot of people that are on Social Security, and a lot of those people are perfectly capable of working, would like to work, but once they go back to work, they're taxed at a very high rate on any incremental income they have over their Social Security. I believe that tax law has to change, and I think that the money that is paid out in Social Security is really a return of the investment that these people made throughout their career. It is their money. It's like a pension payment. It should have no impact on additional income earned by that individual. And there are plenty of people on Social Security who would love to have a job. And I dare say you'd have a lot less for looking for worker signs all over this state if you would change that rule. Again, the same kinds of things I talked about at the state level are definitely true at the federal level, but less tax, less regulation, and you're going to free up the economy, and we can fill these jobs. And again, education. We've got to get people to think about, what can we train them to do that they can actually make a living, and that should become a higher priority than it is right now. Sending kids to college, where we're coming out with degrees in subjects that have no relationship to what they can do to make a living, doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, the definition of inflation is too many dollars chasing too few goods, and our monetary base has increased 30% in the last year. We've kind of built it into the system. At first, there was a lot of cost push inflation. You saw it from the Biden administration talking about supply chain problems and shortages of various products, which, demand and supply, the price goes up. It's now leaked throughout the system. And I can tell from personal experience, since I run a business, we're seeing wage push inflation now. The only way to do it is get our spending under control. And, if the government, Joe Biden's already talked about putting price controls. Now, price controls don't work. We have, 100 years of history of that. The only way to do it is get the government spending under control. Well, a lot of people talk about healthcare and they think it's the insurance companies that are causing the problem. Insurance companies are a very small part of our healthcare dollar. This country became the greatest country in the history of the world on the basis of free market capitalism. We've not allowed free market capitalism to be involved in healthcare at all. Rather, we have the government in crony capitalism taking over our healthcare system. We need perfect transparency when somebody goes for a healthcare treatment. We need to, by having transparency, people can shop. And when people shop for the lowest cost for whatever procedure they might need, you'll have competition among the various healthcare providers. That is the only thing that will lower costs. The government cannot lower costs. They never have been able to, and they won't in the future. So it's very simple. Take the very principles that made this country great and apply them to healthcare. I also would do some other procedural things like allow statewide competition, allow cross-border insurance by the various insurance healthcare providers or healthcare insurance providers, and you would get competition there. So there would be competition on the costs of insurance, and there would be competition on the cost of healthcare. That's the only way we ever lower prices. And anybody that doesn't believe that has never taken an economics course. Well, I believe in having sat on numerous public company boards over the years, still on one right now. I know how important a tax decision is or the tax situation is in making a decision as to where to locate facilities, where to grow facilities, where to employ more people. Again, tax is the problem, and we need to have the lowest taxes in the world. Everybody was offended by people not paying their fair share. You could make a theoretical case that the tax rate for corporations should be zero because they've already paid taxes on the wages that they pay out and the dividends that are paid to investors. The lower the taxes, the more people will be focused on creating employment in this country. The lower we get taxes, the more successful and the better our economy will be off. Well, the government used to, through the EPA, do a cost-benefit analysis. We don't do that anymore. Oftentimes, we look at some part per million of some certain potential carcinogen or whatever. We're eliminating that last part per million. There's no benefit in doing it, and the costs are much greater than the benefits. I think anytime an environmental regulation is imposed, they should have a full idea of what the costs versus the benefits are, and we've gotten away from that. I want to get back on that track. Well, as I mentioned, I think paying people to not work has been a real problem. Um, Regulations are the key. The licensing laws. For instance, there are a lot of people that are licensed. There's no need for a license. We try. The government slows down the entrepreneur at every stage, and the more we alleviate those regulations, the faster this country will have economic prosperity. Now, we do pretty well. But as you saw during the Trump administration, just a little bit of tinkering with regulations. It was probably more than many times in the past, or maybe any time in the past. But it energized our economy, and we saw the growth that follows this reduction in regulation. So rather than getting into the weeds, I would say let's lower taxes and lower regulations, and we're going to have a better economy. Well, I thought about this, and we had some discussions. I'm a big Springsteen fan as far as his music, not his political beliefs. But I'd probably go with Born in the USA.